He was on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. Then he got out, wrote a book about his own redemption, and started touring police academies as a reformed man. And while all of that was happening, he was actively murdering people. This is Edward Wayne Edwards. Edward Wayne Edwards was not born Edward Wayne Edwards. His birth name was actually Charles Wayne Murray, and he arrived in Akron, Ohio on June 14, 1933, into a situation that is almost too brutal to absorb. His mother died by suicide when he was still a toddler. She shot herself in the stomach, and he was there. Old enough to register what happened, young enough to not have any framework for processing it at all. After that, the state placed him into a Catholic orphanage, which turned out to offer zero refuge. The nuns beat him. Older boys beat him. The psychiatric evaluation from those early years documented strong sadomasochistic tendencies, meaning someone looked at this child, wrote it all down in a clinical language, and the institution still had no idea what to do with him. He was eventually expelled for violent, uncontrollable behavior. At some point during all of this, a nun asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up. He told her he was going to be a crook, and a good one. He wrote about that exchange in his autobiography decades later with what reads as real satisfaction, and at that time he was roughly 10 years old. He cycled through juvenile detention and eventually enlisted in the Marines, which is probably the most structured exit available to him at the time. He went AWOL within months and received a dishonorable discharge. Career path 1, out. Through his 20s and 30s, the criminal resume he had promised the nun started filling in. He drifted across the country as a burglar, a car thief, an armed robber, picking up side jobs as a vacuum cleaner salesman, a ship docker, and a handyman. Those jobs moved him between cities and gave him proximity to targets. In 1955, he escaped from a jail in Akron and launched a multi-state gas station robbery spree across the Pacific Northwest. And here's the thing, he refused to wear a mask for any of it. He wrote later that the money was almost beside the point. He wanted people to know his name. There's an ego operating there that never really went away. Also in 1955, he met and married a woman named Jeanette in Idaho Falls, Idaho. And you know when people say they're looking for their partner in crime, I don't think they mean exactly this, but this is exactly what Edward Edwards meant, because he essentially immediately drafted her as his getaway driver. By late 1956, with Jeanette pregnant, they arrived in Portland, Oregon. Edwards committed 3 armed robberies on 3 consecutive nights in the first 5 days in the city. He was eventually arrested in Billings, Montana, and sent to Montana State Prison. While in prison, he hand-carved a leather baby book for his newborn son, Wayne. When Jeanette came to prison to inform him she was filing for divorce, he handed her the book and told her to fill it in with photos of the boy, because once he got out, he planned to kill Wayne to punish her for leaving. She took the book. She believed every word of it. You would have too, I'm sure. Released in July 1959, Edwards returned to Portland on pending robbery charges and received 5 years of probation. He immediately began stalking his ex-wife with a firearm. In November 1960, 2 Portland college students, Larry Payton and Beverly Allen, were murdered. Edwards was spotted near the crime scene carrying a fresh, unexplained gunshot wound to his left arm that he couldn't account for. Before police could build a case, he was picked up on a completely separate charge, setting off fire alarms. And then he escaped from Portland's Rocky Butte jail after an accomplice called the facility pretending to be a probation officer and then verbally cleared him for release. So they let him go. This is 1960, so apparently the security protocol for holding a violent, multi-state fugitive was one confident phone call. Just one. That escape triggered a federal manhunt. On November 10, 1961, the FBI placed Edwards on the 10 most wanted fugitives list. Atlanta police called him in January 1962. He was sent to the United States Penitentiary at Leavenworth. He paroled in 1967 into a country that had fully committed to criminal rehabilitation as a philosophy. This was the philosophical peak of rehabilitationism in American corrections, a movement built on the premise that even the most hardened criminals, the most hardened offenders could be completely transformed through systemic intervention. Edwards looked at that cultural movement and made a very deliberate decision. He wrote a book, his autobiography, The Metamorphosis of a Criminal. It came out in 1972. He claimed FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover had personally reviewed the manuscript. He began touring the country, lecturing at civic groups, at churches, and police academies about his own redemption story. Then he went on television. He appeared on To Tell the Truth and What's My Line? This happened in 1972. This is where celebrity panelists attempt to identify the reformed federal fugitive sitting in front of them. Edwards sat under the studio lights and let them guess. 2 national television appearances in 1 year for a man who was already planning his next murders. Criminologists who later reviewed these appearances describe him as a psychopath, using national media to mock the entire system from the inside. Looking at what he was doing during that same period, that assessment is hard to push back on. While Edwards toured the country as a redeemed man, his 5 children were growing up in conditions his eldest daughter, April, later described as controlled psychological terror. The family moved through more than a dozen states between 1974 and 2009, frequently occupying remote, deteriorating houses without heat or running water. Edwards ran the household as a labor operation, putting the kids to work, scrubbing floors, repairing roofs, doing this for hours. His moods were completely unpredictable. He could stay by April's bedside after she suffered a severe electrical burn and coach her through recovery with genuine care, right? And then in the middle of a completely ordinary night, order everyone to pack up the car with no warnings, no goodbyes allowed to friends and neighbors, and drive them off to another state before sunrise. Criminal records indicate that he frequently set fire to the homes when they vacated, which served as both insurance fraud and evidence removal. April left at age 18 and did not look back. Her siblings drifted away, carrying what those years had built in them. During the peak of his public reputation, Edwards was actively killing people. In 1977, he shot 18-year-old Judith Straub and 21-year-old Billy Lavaco in Sterling, Ohio. In August 1980, he lured 19-year-old sweethearts Timothy Hack and Kelly Drew away from a wedding reception at the Concord House in Sullivan, Wisconsin, a venue where he actually worked as a live-in caretaker. Kelly Drew was bound, stripped, and strangled. Timothy Hack was stabbed. Their remains turned up more than 2 months later in a wooded area at an adjacent cornfield miles from the venue. Jefferson County launched the largest search in its history looking for them. Police questioned Edwards at the time because of his physical proximity to the venue. He then packed his family into the car that night and drove to Pittsburgh. In 1996, he shot his 25-year-old foster son, Danny Boy Edwards, in Ohio, then collected a $250,000 life insurance payout. He avoided any scrutiny for 13 years. By 2009, his daughter April was 40 years old and living in Jefferson, Ohio. For about 18 months, childhood memories began coming back in ways that she could not just simply ignore or push aside. The towns, the midnight departures, the fires. She started keeping a journal, listing every location her family had ever lived and cross-referencing those locations against cold case records she was finding online. She found an article about the Sweetheart murders, the 1980 disappearance of Timothy Hack and Kelly Drew. The dates matched her father's employment at the Concord House in Sullivan exactly. She remembered the overnight drive to Pittsburgh. She called Detective Chad Garcia at the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office and told him everything she had. Garcia used Edwards' own 1972 autobiography to build the affidavit for a DNA search warrant. The book's self-reported psychiatric history and detailed admissions gave him the probable cause he needed. Detectives traveled to Louisville, Kentucky, where Edwards was living as an elderly invalid with his wife, and swabbed his cheek. His DNA matched biological material recorded from Kelly Drew's clothing. He was arrested July 30th, 2009. His own book helped to convict him. His own daughter made the call. Edwards pleaded guilty to the Wisconsin murders and to the Sterling, Ohio murders of Judith Straub and Billy Lavaco. He was 76, wheelchair-bound, and severely diabetic. And then he demanded the death penalty. He specifically confessed to murdering foster son Danny Boy because Ohio maintained an active capital punishment statute. He wanted an execution, and he worked to secure one. Criminologists believe this had nothing to do with remorse. He wanted to control his own ending, guarantee ongoing media coverage, and to also stay out of general population. He received what he was asking for, that death sentence, on March 8, 2011. On April 7, 2011, he died of natural causes in an Ohio prison hospital 1 month after sentencing. Ohio never got to carry out the execution he had spent his final months engineering. He ran every available angle until the very last moment, and then left the way he had always operated, on his own schedule. Except this time, someone else had written the ending before he could. Thanks for listening to 10-Minute Murder, bingeable true crime stories. Hello, I'm the host, Joe, and here's an email. Subject, question from a long-time listener. We call those OG listeners. Hey, Joe, I've been listening since sometime during the pandemic, and it's been interesting hearing the show evolve while still sounding like itself. I bet that's pretty hard to pull off, harder than people think. Do you still get nervous before recording, or has it become second nature at this point? And that's from Melissa in San Jose, California. Melissa, I don't get nervous. And I don't mean just as it relates to the podcast. I mean just in general. And as I'm saying that, I probably should keep it to myself because there's probably something wrong with me and there's a diagnosis out there for me. But yeah, I don't really experience nervousness. There is times that I can look back and think about times in my life that I've gotten nervous, and it just hasn't happened in a very long time. I don't know what's up. So no, to answer your question, Melissa, I don't get nervous before recording. It is a little bit overwhelming sometimes, like a feeling of I'm overwhelmed a little bit, like the pressure of the podcast. When I look at over the course of a year, like millions of people are downloading and listening to this podcast, and that feels a little bit overwhelming and like a little bit of pressure I feel, but it's not nervousness. All right, thank you for the email. And hey, if you're a brand new listener, you listening to me right now, you're a brand new listener to this podcast, welcome. Get comfortable because there are literally hundreds of episodes dating all the way back, as Melissa talked about, to the pandemic, when the show sounded a little bit different, but hundreds of episodes for you to go back and binge on. But most importantly, make sure you hit subscribe wherever you're listening right now. If you're an OG listener, I love you. Keep doing what you're doing, sharing the podcast with your friends and your family, rating it 5 stars, and also commenting and just engaging with the social media content that I put out there. And that's going to do it. That's your episode for today. Thank you again for listening to 10-Minute Murder. See you next time.